What's up, everyone? Welcome to my 2025, or my second in the bag. So to start off, I'm using the Prodigy BP1V3. I was actually using that last year. It just wasn't in the video because there's some travel issues, details that will bore you. And I would say the number of discs, I'm probably bagging about 26 in here. And I think I have 10 molds. Well, ideally, right now I have 11, but ideally I have 10. More on that later. Before I get into the discs, let's really quickly get into everything else I carry besides this really quickly. I carry a bunch of hand towels, 1, 2, 3, and then I carry this kind of frog towel. Being in the South, especially during the summers, it can get very hot during your rounds, and especially if I'm playing a tournament during the summer where I'm playing 2 rounds a day in very hot conditions. Having something that I can wet with cold water and put over my neck to keep cool is very important. And then you might have seen this mini spike ball escape from my bag. I use this for tournament prep. So I got this idea from Eric Oakley and James Proctor, where if you're preparing for a tournament and you miss a putt inside the circle that's open, you get punished by having other people throw this ball at you. It's pretty painful, which is a good teacher to not miss inside the circle. And then after that, I just carry some warm-up equipment, bands to warm up, that kind of thing. I got bug spray, and then last but not least, my another round Greenville dry bag for some nice chalky hands so discs don't slip in wet or sweaty conditions. And now let's finally get into the discs. Last year I did putters to drivers. I think I did understable to overstable. I will still do putters to drivers, but instead I will go overstable to understable. Starting up top as always with my putting putters. Last year I was bagging the Eldritch from Remix, if you remember, and I did enjoy that putter. I was really good from inside the circle with it, but I couldn't really figure it out from outside the circle. And then I was putting with P2s before that, and with P2s it was kind of the opposite, so I figured why not have both, use the P2s for outside the circle and use the Eldritch from inside the circle. And that was working for a little bit until I played a tournament, and long story short, having 2 putters that felt really different and flew really differently just didn't really work. So I made another switch to the Marvel from Birdie, and I really enjoy these. I have 3. I putt with all 3 of them, but I primarily throw this one, and these are my 2 primary putters. They're pretty dead straight for me inside the circle, and then I don't really get much fade despite putting on a bit of hyzer until like to the 50-foot range, and then from there I start to step. And then if I have a really long step putt, I will go with this guy, which is a little beat up and glider because I do throw it. Speaking of throwing putters, that's what I'll get to next. Going from overstable to understable, we will start with my group of tactics. I have 4 of them, which I know seems like a lot, but I'll take you through them. Most overstable, or at least should be, is this Razor Claw 3 meta tactic. Shout out Eagle. Just basically your premium plastic approach disc. Nothing really special. Doesn't really get thrown super often in the woods because I don't really usually need a drastic fade. Hit it flat, fades every time. Forehand, backhand, and hyzer. Doesn't really matter. Nice and reliable. And then next I have a fresh Exo Hard tactic. This serves as my overstable throwing putter. If you might remember last year I was throwing a S-Line P2 with a little die on it. And I did enjoy that, but then I realized I can just throw a tactic in, and that's after a whole journey with Kratos and some other molds. But I eventually just landed on a fresh Exo tactic. This one, it's actually really overstable for a fresh Exo tactic, a little bit too overstable, so I will be beating it up. But how it's supposed to fly is basically just one step down from that previous tactic. Fades every time, but just not as much. Next I'll go with the trusty tactic. Really beat up old Exo Hard. This is one of the first runs of tactics, I believe. Been in the bag for well over 3 years. It can do anything besides flipping and flexing. So anything straight. Forehand and backhand, hyzer, flat, and hyzer. I really like the tactic because it's deeper than a zone, and meaning I can backhand it a lot better, and being a primary backhand power player, or just most of my shots being backhanded, that's really nice. And lastly is kind of my special tactic, this Exo Soft Exo Vapor 2022 tactic. This doesn't get thrown off the tee very often just because it is so soft it can get a little sticky in my hand. But it is really nice in the winter months sometimes. But again, when it gets hotter outside, I do not throw this off the tee just because it'll grip lock. I'll grip lock and miss my line. But we do have a lot of holes, especially in upstate Carolina, where I do most of my disc golfing, where we have a lot of holes that are short downhill with OB behind, whether they be holes or just approach shots. So having something that'll just hit and stick and not slide into the OB behind is really nice. In terms of stability, it's in between the other two EXO cards, so it's definitely more stable than the trusty tactic. So it is overstable, but its primary use is for sticking on tight greens. And then for more of a traditional throwing putter shape, I have two. I have this Marvel from earlier. Well, I do use this for Anheuser putts because it is more understable than my primary putting putters, excuse me. This is kind of like my dead straight, slightly understable maybe throwing putter, whereas the white trusty tactic will kind of hold straight and have a little bit of checkup. This will kind of hold straight and have a little bit of flip. So just really nice 1-2 combo, and the Marvel is a very glidey mold, so I can really put it up high and really get some good distance out of it for a putter. And then if I need something really understable or to hit a tight gap, throw it straight through a gap, tunnel shots, that sort of thing, I got this Pro D magnet. If you know, this is my first ever disc. I've been playing disc golf for 5 years now, meaning this disc has been in my bag for 5 years. Really nice. I can hit it on just a slight amount of hyzer, soft, and I can hit a tunnel shot and it'll just flip up straight. One hole I can think of is, I believe, hole 5 or hole 6, actually, Tiger River. It's just like a short 250 shot, really tight tunnel shot, and I think I birdie it almost every time with this disc just because I know it so well. I can also power up on it and get a lot more play. Hyzer flip turn, throw it high, really watch it pan, really nice. And that'll conclude my putters. Next up, we got my mid-ranges. Because I have so many throwing putters, as you can tell, that doesn't really create a need for many mid-ranges, even though I do really enjoy throwing them when I can. They're all MVP. Just coincidence, I do really enjoy their mid-range lineup. Again, going from overstable to understable. My most overstable mid in a mid I cannot live without is the deflector from MVP. A lot of people compare this to a Justice, which I do agree is that super overstable utility mid-range. The one big difference between this and the Justice is the deflector doesn't have a bead on it, just more of like a lip. I enjoy the feel of that more because I just don't really like forehanding a beaded disc. But this is kind of my, I call it am-proof approach disc. Even if I mess up my angle, Anheuser, hyzer, whatever, this will still stick to where I want. I can throw it really vertical and get the stick, or I can throw it at a more 45-degree low, hyzer skip shot, and it'll give me a good skip. Just really nice. Mostly used for approaches, some scrambles, just an all-over utility mid-range. Really nice disc. I really love this deflector in Proton. Next, I'll introduce these as a pair. My reactors. I love my reactors. They are my go-to mid. First, we just have this stock Eclipse reactor, kind of my overstable mid-range that'll still get some push, unlike the deflector. Really nice. If I put it on Anheuser, it will hold it for quite a while and get some fade. It's actually getting a little bit too straight on me, so maybe I'll start to cycle these and maybe throw another glow reactor in. I don't know. I have some glow MVP mids coming in, so maybe that'll shake up a little bit. But anyways, that is really nicely paired with a fission reactor. I think the glow and fission reactor 1-2 punch is one of the most underrated mid-range 1-2 punches in the game. Good for mold minimalization, which is something I enjoy doing. Anyways, this is kind of my workhorse mid-range. Think like your nice, straight, slightly stable buzz. Kind of like how the trusty tactic kind of goes straight with a little bit of bite. This orange fission reactor does the same for me. Really nice. I can put on any angle and watch it fly. Maybe with a little bit of fade at the end. And they go, they're mid-ranges. They go further than the putters, good 30, 40 feet further. And lastly but not least, we have the Gyropalooza first run detour. I know this is a pretty sought after run just because it's the first run. I do really enjoy this. If you remember, this was in the bag last year, and I said it was a bit too straight. It was kind of a super straight disc for me. I want it to be more understable. It has now gotten to that point and then some. Kind of similar to this magnet right here in the front of the bag, where it's kind of just a longer version of it, where if I do have a tunnel shot, I can hit it again on that slight hyzer. Kind of my favorite release when throwing on a tunnel shot. Soft, and just watch it flip up and carry straight. I recently birdied hole 3, at West Delray Regional from the Longs, which if you've played that in South Florida, you may know that it's just a really awkward, tight tunnel shot that's really difficult to get the 2 on. But it's a 5 feet for maybe the second time ever with this disc. Really nice. I can also power up on it in a tailwind, and it'll just bomb per mid-range. The furthest flying mid-range I've ever thrown in the detour. And that'll do it for my mid-range lineup. Now we move on to another quite hefty section of my bag, being the fairway drivers. I air quoted that because I do have some 10 speeds that I consider fairways, maybe distance, or you can say control drivers. I'm bagging 7. This number could very easily be 8, and this white disc is going to be replaced because it's not what I want it to be. I mentioned how I usually bag 10 molds, but currently have 11. That's because of this guy. Let's start with my 1-2 punch of resistor. Really enjoy the resistor. Just a nice overstable slow disc, kind of like a Firebird, mini Firebird, like a slower Firebird. Starting with the more overstable being this Eclipse resistor. Just really beefy. I don't really throw this very often, to be honest with you. This kind of gets more of my overhand throws, kind of my skip shots, where yes, the deflector does give me some skips, but if I need a really big skip, something with more of a driver rim to get those big round player skips, I will go to this Eclipse resistor. Eclipse resistor, really nice, excuse me. And then its understable older brother, if you will, is the Neutron resistor. Just really nice. I've beaten this one up quite a bit, to the point where it does get some nice push before it fades. One of the most thrown discs in my bag. If I just have a shot that's, short, that's like a short to medium fairway distance, I would say actually mid-range to short fairway distance, just in the open, I'm likely just throwing this flat and watching it carry straight and then kind of just fade right onto the target. Really nice. I will introduce these as a trio, even though they are 2 different molds. That is my 2 Vengeances and the Fighter, all from Legacy. Real quick, normally this Fighter would be a Pinnacle, which is their Champ plastic from Legacy, but I lost mine right before my tournament, and I can't find one anywhere, because they're actually pretty rare, and they haven't done a run in a while, but when they do, I will get one. So right now I have the Fighter, just way too overstable for what I want. Yes, it's a 10-speed, and I do really enjoy the 10-speed rim, but I don't know if you can see this profile. I'll probably get a close-up shot. This thing is just straight beef, way too overstable. What I like about overstable, I like overstable discs that will get some push before their fade, and this just does not do that, to the point where it barely goes as far as my resistors. So what it normally should be with the Pinnacle Vengeance is kind of like, imagine like your PD or overstable Thunderbird, where it will get some push before its fade. And then we go to the actual Vengeances. I have a Legend Plastic Vengeance and an Icon Vengeance. Starting with the Legend flat top, so I can forehand it and backhand it, even though I would say 95% of the time I'm throwing this on backhand. Kind of just goes straight for a while before eventual fade. Kind of like a lot of the discs I bag. It's just a really consistent shot shape. In a wind, this will actually get some play for me, and I like the flatter profile sometimes because I can really just get my thumb into it and just rip it. I really like this for on Anheuser. It'll hold and pan out. Really nice. And pairs really well with this Icon Vengeance that will actually give me a bit of flip. Kind of think like your Seasoned Thunderbird that might get some flip, might get some play, but should come back a little bit at the end. And I really enjoy this because this will go as far as an 11 or a 12 speed despite its 2cm 10 speed rim. Really nice. I do really enjoy the Vengeance. Probably my favorite 10 speed I've ever thrown. Next, I have 2 Craves. I'd probably want a third just because I have a bit of a gap in my bag. I'm kind of missing a 7502 kind of disc just because these are both kind of flip-up Craves for me. This is a Neutron Soft from the most recent 2024, I believe, OTB Open special runs. Really nice. This one is more stable than this Eclipse, but what they both kind of do for me is they just both flip. Only difference is this flips less and fades a little more, while this, flips more and fades less, as understable discs do. I can put this flat, and it'll kind of fly like the -1-1 numbers, where we'll get some turn, and get some fade, where this kind of flies like a -2-1, just gets some more turn. Up in the upstate South Carolina, I throw these on hole 18 at Timmins. It's kind of like a 3, I think it's labeled at like 375. I think it's barely downhill, so maybe plays a little shorter. Just kind of a wide fairway straight shot. Kind of picturesque, really nice. Love throwing these. Kind of like the perfect distance for me for these. And that'll do it for my fairways. Last, and tied for least, but honestly my favorite part of my bag are my distance drivers. Last year I was also bagging 4 distance drivers. I don't bag a lot of distance drivers just because I don't throw a lot of distance drivers very often on the courses. Most of the courses I play in upstate South Carolina, where I spend 8 out of the 12 months of the year. Most of the holes are 300 feet and in, gotta shape lines, and then when I do get out in the open, you still have to throw some accuracy. You don't really get the chance to really rip one and see how it goes, and see where it goes. So most of my distance drivers are just overstable 12 speeds, and they are all Emperors. Last year I was bagging Trespasses and Emperors. I've gotten rid of the Trespasses partly due to the Icon Vengeance, and I just have Emperors. I love the Emperor. So let's start with the most overstable, being this Cotton Candy Halo S-Blend Emperor. If you've watched Eric Oakley and James Proctor or most Infinite Pros in the bags, they'll mention that they have one of these just because it's so overstable for an Emperor that it removes the need for a Conqueror if you're sticking with Infinite, or a PD2 or an Excalibur type disc. Although, while it is really overstable, I can still get some push out of it just because I've beaten this one up a little bit. Really enjoy this disc. I love throwing this in the headwinds, or just situations where I need kind of a further version of the Pinnacle Vengeance if I had one. Just really nice forehand, backhand. I'll throw it whichever angle, and I know it'll always hyzer out on me. Just really nice to have something fast and decently overstable in your bag for those long, windy drives. Next is the Run 19 Luster C-Blend Emperor. Max weight, they're all max weight in terms of Emperors. Most of my discs are max weight. A couple exceptions, I think. There might be some in the high 160s, but anyways. Really nice, just a slight amount of donum on this one. Really enjoy this Emperor. Last year was kind of my most overstable Emperor, and as it's beaten up and as I've developed just a little bit more arm speed, this has been really nice. I threw a shot, I was playing West Del Rey the other day with a couple buddies. Hole 11 is like a 750-foot hole, and you always play it into a headwind. My first shot, my drive wasn't really great, so I kind of had about, I would say, 415 to the pin in a left to right headwind. I threw this flat, gave me a bit of turn over the road that runs the right side of the hole, skipped off it, and actually went 15 to 20, 25 feet long and missed the putt for birdie. Ended up grabbing a par, but threw a fantastic shot with these C-Blend Emperors. I was wondering why. Everyone was kind of saying that these are kind of the money run, the Run 19, and I kind of didn't see that until then. These are money. If you want a disc that's kind of like your Destroyer but with a slightly thicker rim, literally just go straight to the Emperor, just because that is what it is. It's a Destroyer with a slightly thicker rim. Not quite to that 13 speed thickness, but pretty close. Next is the Garrett Gurthie, I believe this is 2020 Swirly S-Blend Emperor. Just a step down from that C-Blend, that Luster C-Blend. So whenever I have a 415 foot open shot, this is usually what I'll go with. Just put it flat to the right of the pin, let it fade. In a headwind, I will throw this flat and it will get some turn. So I do enjoy this, just kind of like my straight Emperor. Lastly but not least, honestly, this might be my favorite Emperor despite being a stock run, if you will, whereas these are kind of more coveted runs, even though you can't get the the Luster C-Blend pretty consistently. But this is just a straight up max weight X out I-Blend Emperor, my super domey boy. Last year, this was my second most overstable Emperor, and it has beaten up significantly because it is that I-Blend plastic. Kind of like my slightly flippy Emperor. It still will have some comeback to it, especially if I put it flatter on hyzer. But I can get some flip out of this, which is really nice. Tailwind, anhyzer bomber, left to right wind, bomber, right to left wind, bomber, just pretty much anything except for a headwind, this will get a lot of action. And then if I do forehand an Emperor, this is usually the first one I go to, although I do forehand the other Emperors. Just really nice. Whenever I do get the chance to throw something as far as I can, which is pretty rare, this is usually what I'll go to. Absolutely love this Emperor, love all my Emperors. I would be lost without them. Or would I? Because I don't throw many distance driver shots. But they are definitely my favorite distance driver mold I've ever thrown. And that does it for my bag. Thank you so much for watching. Not a lot of changes compared to last year, especially in terms of the mold, but in terms of this, there were a lot of changes. So I just wanted to update. And then one more thing, I apologize for not uploading very often. I've actually started a disc golf club at my school, Furman University, which has been great, don't get me wrong, but that means I don't get to play a lot of rounds by myself, which is when I usually do my filming. I will try and bring content back in the new year. It's just tough being in school when that takes my main focus, my main priority. So a lot of the content you will see are maybe some of those rapid disc reviews, those rapid reviews I was doing, the 2 minutes where I just show off a mold or something like that. Or maybe I'll talk about topics that don't require me to get out of course and throw. So a lot of content like that will likely be coming, hopefully. I'll try and get back on that. That's one of my minor goals for the new year. Anyways, Happy New Year, everyone. Happy 2025. I hope it is a good one. I'll see you in the next one, hopefully sometime soon. Yep, and I'll see you there. Peace.